Welcome everyone to the second Brain Innovation Days event, which is part of our one-year virtual celebration of innovation in the brain space. My name is Monica Di Luca. I am the president of European Brain Council, which is one of the founding partners of this event. One of the major goals of the Brain Innovation Days is to create synergies and showcase the importance of innovation in the brain area. Being strongly convinced that particularly in brain research and brain science in general, innovation has to be considered as broad and inclusive as possible. Going from novel approaches and ideas from brain researchers to translational research, applied research, to novel policy recommendation. This is why we are excited to welcome so many of you today, following our successful launch of this event in October 2020. And we are thrilled to see the support and interest in brain innovation from so many different stakeholders across brain ecosystem and beyond. Today, we will cover another important theme within brain innovation, going from a creative idea to a successful and concrete intervention, and exploring how we can improve support for European innovators and bring innovation in Europe back to the forefront globally. We have an impressive lineup of speakers with us today, as well as a pitch competition with 9 finalists. So without any further delay, I hand you over to the Brain Innovation Day studio. Thank you again for joining us today and enjoy.
Hello, everyone, to the second Brain Innovation Days. I'm your host, Jessica Frommer, and I'm really happy to be here with you. I'm with Fred Destrebeck, the Executive Director of the European Brain Council. Hi, Fred.
Hi, Jess.
I just want to let you know that you're over 370 that have registered for this event. Obviously, it's a virtual event because of the pandemic. I'd like you to sit comfortably, make sure you have your water, your tea, because this is going to be 2.5 hours of pretty eventful and amazing discussions. So Fred, I opened this session talking about the second event, but the first event happened on the 14th of October 2020. Can you give me a bit of feedback on what you felt happened that day?
Yes, actually, Jess, we had this first event because of the pandemic. We had to embark into a longer journey than what was initially planned. But at the same time, we had a fantastic launch with high-profile speakers. We had Jean-Éric Paquet from DG Research and Innovation. We had the mayor of Leuven, which is the capital city of innovation in Europe. We had the executive director of the Innovative Medicines Initiative, Pierre Mullien. We also had a representative of the European Medicines Agency. So what really encouraged us to continue it was the high level of participation, the great enthusiasm, loads of interactions and feedback. So thank you all for contributing so much and so actively. And our desire was really to keep the community that you are building alive by releasing online information towards the event of today, but also by launching today the matchmaking platform.
Thank you very much, Fred. Exactly, a lot happened and there was a real sense of community that was built in that first event. And for those that were not available to follow in October, here's a little recap of what happened. The European Brain Council and BLean. So what is brain innovation? Well, as you can see, it was an important first event for this journey across the year. And before we get into today's sessions, Fred, tell me a bit about this partnership between BLean and the European Brain Council. Why did you get together? What is the approach?
Well, actually, we at the EBC, we do represent a community of stakeholders, patient organizations, clinicians, researchers, But we felt that we needed to find the right partner in order to really go at the core of the brain innovation ecosystem. And Bilin, actually, they are active in supporting developers, startups to bring their solution to the market. And the event of today really demonstrates the added value of this partnership, as we are going to have sessions emphasizing the current context from a regulatory perspective on brain innovation, but also what are the current developments. And we also will have a pitching competition of startups having applied to us to present their solution.
Thank you very much, Fred. Well, let's get to today now. So, as I said, there's going to be opportunities to participate as the public. You'll be able to vote. This will be done through Slido. There's an interactive section on your screen to your right that will be opened after the pitching. And so I'm going to ask you to get ready. We're going to go into the full flow right now. The first session is all about innovation in the European brain space and also the role of startups. So there was a McKinsey report that came out just a while back that did give a bit of a highlight of what the current situation is when it comes to startups and Europe, especially compared to the rest of the world. It's doing well, but there are some hurdles. So let's get straight into this first session. And I'd like to introduce the moderator of this first session, François Merger, the Managing Director of Oculas, and he will be managing the panelists, the speakers, the Q&A amongst each other and the interaction. So François, it's a pleasure. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Jessica. I'm delighted to be here, and I'm delighted to be joined by two distinguished speakers that are going to animate this first panel. The first one is Mark Ferguson, who is the Chief Scientific Advisor of the Government of Ireland and the Chair of the Advisory Board of the European Innovation Council. So welcome, Mark. And coincidentally, our second speaker is Irish as well. Padraig Ward is the head of the international region at Roche Pharmaceuticals. So welcome to both of you. Don't forget to unmute yourself when you do the panel. So I'll launch a first question very much to follow up on Jessica's introductory comments. There's been a number of reports, indeed, including several from McKinsey, showing that Europe is struggling in terms of innovation. Europe has the basic science, has the publication, has the researchers, they have the entrepreneurs in terms of startups, but clearly we're not really competing in terms of successful companies, number of unicorns, or in terms of marketable innovation. So maybe let me start with Mark. What is Europe lacking? What is missing to compete effectively against the US, against China? I dare not say against the UK now.
So I think that's a very interesting question. As you say, the science in Europe is as good as US or China. Actually, the number of startups is as good. What we're really lacking is scale up. In other words, growing companies to sizable entities. So the European Innovation Council is a new instrument in the Horizon Europe program to address just that. So it's a 10 billion euro program, and our aim is to scale up companies. We want to crowd in private investors, so that's very important. We want to be able to bring other investors into the fold. We want to de-risk the investment by, for example, co-investing, by being able to do due diligence. And there are three simple instruments for doing that. One is the accelerator program, where bluntly a small company can get a 2.5 million euro grant and up to 15 million euro in equity. So that's up to 17.5 million, 2.5 million grant, 15 million equity. Very competitive, but it's really with the aim of crowding in investors. The second instrument is transition. That's transitioning from other European programs like the European Research Council, the European Institute of Technology, into a commercializable product. So that's an earlier stage. That's typically a 2.5 million grant. And then there is the Pathfinder, which is really the successor of the FET program, which is looking at really important cutting edge technologies for Europe. So part of that is not just investment, it's also crowding in investors by organizing investor days. It's bringing in corporates who are really important as customers, as potential investors through their corporate funds, as potential partners, as potential sales distributors. So it's really about trying to build that ecosystem. There is a big gap in being able to scale in Europe, and we hope in this way to be able to de-risk things and accelerate them. It's one instrument for doing that.
Terrific, Mark. Let me turn to Torek. Obviously, Roche has had in the last few years, very, very important presence in the US innovation ecosystem around Genentech. What about Europe? I mean, how do you see Roche participating in that, indeed, scale up of innovation in Europe?
Oh, we're yeah, it's true. We have a lot that happens in Genentech, the Genentech unit in the US, but we are a European company and very proud of it. We're not a startup. We're in our 125th year just now from a beginning in 1896. And I don't know if the company is amongst industrial investors the biggest investor in healthcare R&D in the world. So we have 11 billion euros a year going into R&D in medicines and diagnostics. And so, coming back to the opening comment you made about Europe struggling with innovation, I'm not sure that struggling is the right word. Because I think, to Mark's point, there is a lot going on, both in companies like ours and in smaller units that are only beginning the journey. It's true that, I mean, it's a bit more than 25 years since I first joined this industry. And when I joined, the level of investment in innovation in Europe was about the same as it was in the US at the time. And that's not the case anymore. It's clear that the US has accelerated significantly in that. And it's true also in that time, in the last 10 years in particular, there's been a huge amount of investment in innovation in healthcare going on in China too. And we shouldn't get nationalistic about that. There's great things that come out of that benefits patients everywhere. But I do think it behoves us to make sure that we are using the resources, the skills, the talents, the infrastructure, the fabulous life science universities, and all those, and the great healthcare systems, by the way, that we have in Europe, to see what we can do to do our part as Europeans to bring innovation to patients as well. I would say, in addition to everything that Mark said, one of the key things that has to happen is that we have to decide that we want to, actually. We have to make the decision that this is something we want to achieve. And that isn't enough on its own, but I do think it's almost a precondition to anything else working.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Listening to you, I mean, something that comes up in my mind is certainly I'm fairly familiar with the US environment and a little bit the Asian, but clearly you see in Europe, maybe more than in this region, some I don't want to say distrust, but maybe distance between the various players, government, academia, industry, and the financial sector. How can we make them work better, closer? I love the crowding in investors that Mark thinks, but how can you see this cooperation being closer, or could it be closer? Mark, maybe.
So I think, so I'll make two comments. First of all, I'm not so pessimistic in my view. If you look at the European Innovation Council, which has been in pilot mode, we receive thousands of applications for each of our rounds. And, success rate in funding is about 5%. And there's about 20% of the proposals that could be funded. So what does that tell you? It tells you there's a lot of innovation. There's a lot of good innovation that's been through essential business cases. Supplying more fuel to the tank in terms of funding is one of them. Building networks is another. And, the European Institute of Technology, various national bodies are about trying to build those linkages. And so are we. I mean, that's a complementary thing. And nothing succeeds like success. So, you get a few of these things going. People, either sell or they do an IPO and build a company. They go on and they recycle and do other things. People get a vision from that. So I think, it's about doing more of what we're about. But really, there's also a European disease where we talk ourselves down and the United States talks themselves up. And I'm really not in the business of talking Europe down. I actually think there's an awful lot going on right across Europe. Right across Europe, you can see lots and lots of innovation. And boy, this is the most exciting time to be alive, you know, in science and innovation. Huge pace of discovery in the life sciences, huge pace of discovery in digital and artificial intelligence. And these things are merging and coming together, including, for example, food and pharmaceuticals. So enormous opportunities. And I think it's really about encouraging people. It's slightly changing the culture so that they don't feel so bad if it doesn't work out the first time. And it's about building the networks. And it's also about putting fuel in the tank. But I'm really quite optimistic. You know, I don't think we should be talking Europe down. We do have to catch up on some of our competitors. But, you know, if we were as good as Silicon Valley and we were in the similar position, we'd have a problem. But we're not, and we can accelerate it. So I'm kind of upbeat about it.
I am too, Mark. I agree with you. And I also think that the environment in Europe has things to offer that the environment in China and in the environment in the United States do not. I'm not saying it's better or worse. I'm just saying it's different.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking about the organization of our healthcare systems, which could, if we wanted it to, make data flow better. I think if we were able to get to a point where there's a common European data space, that would give European smaller companies the opportunity for scale faster that they don't have now. So I think that the elements are there. There's certainly no shortage. I mean, I'm not an expert in startups, but I come across enough people who are very dynamic, who have brilliant ideas and want to put energy and effort into it, that there's plenty of people around in Europe who could do it. And I think we have to look and see how we can help them get a better shot of success than they do now.
Terrific. Maybe a follow-up question to Padraig. You know, a few years ago, obviously, I've been in the industry 30 years. 10 years ago, I think there was a real concern among scientists and clinicians about the fact that the pharma industry was, you know, kind of walking away from innovation in neurology, mental health. And I think there's reason to be more optimistic now. How do you see it? Obviously, Roche is very well known for leadership in oncology, but do you see brain research as a priority? And how do you judge the industry's investment in that area?
I'm probably not the right person to talk about the industry's investment, but certainly on behalf of Roche, I can say we never went away. And Roche has a very long history of being in brain diseases. The thing about it is that investment and that activity, it doesn't always turn into medicines, though. And you've got to be okay with that. You have to be able to take a long-term view and say, yep, we'd rather have more successes than failures. And happily, across the portfolio of things we do, that is the case for Roche. We don't take it for granted, but it has been the case. And you know, we've always had research programs in brain diseases. There was a longish period when that just didn't turn into anything that was helpful, but we didn't give up. And in the last couple of years, initially in the US and hopefully looking for wood to touch here in Europe soon as well, we have a couple of great new medicines coming out, one for neuromyelitis optica and another for SMA, which are, I think, will be meaningful for patients in Europe as well, not least because they can get great outcomes from them while being treated at home. And, you know, it's one of those things that we're looking at as well, and we're trying to do, and Fred and I have spoken a little bit about, is how do we make sure that we're meeting not only biological or medical needs, but also the needs of patients, and working together to try and find out what is it that we can do that is important from a treatment point of view, but also is meaningful for patients in terms of what patients value. So as I say, fingers crossed, hopefully we'll have some good news in Europe on that front soon.
We hope so, for your sake and patients' sake. Mark, maybe from your point of view, where do brain diseases fit in the overall European innovation landscape? Is that a top priority for the European Innovation Council? What do you think?
So the European Innovation Council is very bottom up. So we're interested in anything that's deep tech, but we will also run targeted calls. But understanding the brain and the illnesses that arise from that, whether they be physical illnesses or whether they be mental illnesses, I mean, that's one of the big uncharted areas of contemporary medicine. So it is absolutely ripe for opportunity. You know, understanding how cognitive processes work, understanding how you can intervene, for example, in devastating disorders like Alzheimer's and so on. So I think this is really the space. I mean, this is high risk, high gain research and innovation. There's a lot that we don't understand. So that's the risk bit, but it's also the opportunity bit. And it's where, fostering really good public-private partnerships where essentially the public money can de-risk things, because bluntly, most things won't work when you're in that area, but some will, and that will be very good. So I see this as a major interest, major opportunity, but we are bottom up. So, if all of the excellent people who are in brain research send us loads of excellent applications, we'll fund loads of it. And if they don't, we won't. It's as simple as that.
Well, I'm sure the European Brain Council can play a role. Let me maybe zoom in a little bit on the pharma part. The European Commission revealed its new pharmaceutical strategy a few months ago, and apart from a few platitudes like breaking silos and aligning research priorities with areas of unmet need, as if nobody had ever thought of that, how do you see the European institution play a role in fostering innovation in Europe? I mean, apart from what you're doing, what role can governmental institution play, and how can it really accelerate research in that field?
I'm happy to take a stab at that. First, I'm a relatively glass half full kind of fella to begin with, and so I have to say that I was pretty pleased with what I saw in the pharmaceutical strategy that the Commission published late last year. And I think when you put that together with the general industrial policy that's been put in place, you begin to get a convergence of the kinds of things that Mark was talking about earlier on. I don't think it's a panacea, and I don't think that just publishing a few documents is going to make a big difference. But insofar as they set the tone and direction of what we're all collectively supposed to be trying to achieve, whether that be governments or private investors, I think it's definitely helpful. I think it important around Europe that we begin to move away from thinking about healthcare as a cost and think about it as an opportunity for investment and to make things better for those who need it. But I do think the fact that we have some kind of separation on almost conflict between policymakers, regulators, funding institutions, and others isn't helping us much here. It's bringing some rigidities into the system that make it actually quite difficult to change. It makes it difficult to change. You bring a medicine to patients in Europe, and if it requires a significant change in the way that healthcare is delivered, it's very difficult to get it done. And so you end up sometimes with medicines being used at a point where it's later than, and you know this, Francois, they end up being used later on in the course of the disease, when in fact it would have made a big difference, first to the patient, but also to the cost of the system if they'd been used earlier. And so I think the more we can take a holistic view to thinking about healthcare systems, as I said before, creating a common data space across the countries of the European Union in particular, that's going to help. But the other half of it is the mindset shift, and be thinking about how do we think about the money that goes into healthcare as an investment rather than only as a cost. Without that, it's going to be really hard to make significant progress, I think. But I do think it's doable if we wanted to.
Oh, definitely path for the future. Maybe one last question to Mark. I mean, you have a fantastic profile because you're originally in academia, and then you became an entrepreneur, biotech venture head. Then you've obviously moved to government, if I say. Why aren't there more profiles like you, and what insights do you bring from building those bridges between these part of the research institutions?
So, I mean, I think it's really interesting that people can have a mobile career. I think it's probably something we have to foster more of in Europe, that you can move more seamlessly between academia and industry, both large and small, and indeed government. But, it's very common for people to slag off governments or institutions like the European Union. But what's really interesting is all the wicked problems come to rest at government. So like if you're an entrepreneur, an academic, you can say, I'm not doing brain research, it's too difficult. I'm not doing cancer research, I'm not doing food, it's too difficult. But as a government, you can't say, I'm not doing health, I'm not doing energy, I'm not doing water. You can't say that. And it comes with a whole series of constraints, not the least of which is most politicians want to be re-elected. And so sometimes they know the right thing to do, but they don't know how to get re-elected after they've done it. So I think those kind of understanding that system and how you can influence it and how you can get people to work together and real success. I mean, being autocatalytic. So, for example, the European Innovation Council has been in pilot mode. In that time, we have, in 2 years, invested in at least one company that's become a unicorn and 100 that are worth over 100 million euros. Not bad, not as good as it could be. If you want to be critical, the unicorn shifted its base to the United States, so that tells us you've got more work to do. Nothing's perfect. But, those kind of learning, that iterative learning, which is really quite common in the academic place and indeed in the industrial place as well, is really important in the kind of policy interface. I'm always saying scientists do experiments, but we should do experiments in research policy and in innovation policy, and we should rigorously assess them. And we should have the courage to say, look, we didn't get that quite right, but we learned from that, and here's something better here, and now we're going to improve and so on. I think if you bring that mindset, actually you can make remarkable progress, because it sort of shifts what I call the blame culture and gets you into a much more cooperative working, where you can say, actually, we really all want the same thing. We've got different perspectives. And you've got to understand people's quite legitimately held aims. It is the aim of a company to make money. That's good. It's the aim of an academic to discover new things. That's good. It's the aim of a government to have policy that benefits citizens. That's good. So it's meshing those things together. So I think a little more understanding and a little more fluidity. And that's one of the big advantages, I think, of the US system. There is much more movement between academia and small companies and large companies and even government than there is in Europe. And encouraging that, you just get to learn different people's problems and appreciate them, and actually appreciate at the interface how you can solve them.
Thank you both. Unfortunately, I think I have to put a term to this great discussion. I think I would have another more question. One I think, which is a challenge, is the time horizon of our decision makers, both in the private sector and the public sector. And I think it has shrunk dramatically over the last 20 or 30 years, which is an issue with long-term investing in research. Thank very, very much to both of you. I hope we have a chance to pursue the discussion. Back to you, Jessica. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Francois. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Barack. Mark, your enthusiasm was really catching. I mean, you said it's probably the most exciting time to be alive. I mean, that's really enthusiastic considering the situation at a global level and the pandemic. I heard holistic. I heard that there has been investment. Maybe there needs to be more, there needs to be fluidity, and maybe bringing the different actors together. So I think the discussion really hit home that there is the enthusiasm, there's a lot happening, but let's all work together and make it happen, because it can. So without further ado, let's proceed to the next part. As you know, there's going to be 9 pitches. It's a competition. These 9 pitches are going to be presented alphabetically. You can vote. There is a public vote. So don't forget, Slido will be there for you to use and vote. It will be open after the pitching. And get ready, get comfortable, because some amazing companies are going to pitch. The pitching has started, and I'd like to welcome Timothy from Beeline. Timothy, before we actually hear the pitches, just a few questions. Explain to me why pitching?
Yes, so thank you, Jess. So this pitch competition was initially meant for everyone. Students, entrepreneurs, startups or scale-ups, so long as they had a good feasible idea and a business plan. Developing treatments will significantly improve the lives of those suffering with brain disorders, and we know how extremely challenging this can be. We also have to bear in mind that 1 out of 3 Europeans will at a certain period of their time be living with a brain disease. This is why we created this pitch competition, in order to promote these essential startups that are working hard and that we need in order to make tomorrow better.
Thank you very much, Timothy. So in regards to the actual application, the numbers, what happened, what did you get, and tell me a bit about the spectrum of the applications.
So yes, so the applications were open until the 30th of November and gathered more than 90 applicants representing 26 countries and covering 4 main areas: biotech, medtech, digital health, and research empowerment. I must say that we were really amazed by the level of each candidate.
All right, thank you very much. So that is indeed a big number, 90 applications. There are now 9 companies that are going to pitch. How did you make that pre-selection?
So indeed, the pre-selection was really an extensive assessment focusing on the science, the clinical, the market identification, but also the team and the freedom to operate. This gave us a really good understanding of each candidate. And Jess, I think you would agree with me when I say that we are really excited and confident to tell our audience today that we have brought to them a wide and outstanding lineup of Europe's prominent startups in the field of neurodiseases.
Absolutely. Get ready for some amazing pitches. But before we head into the pitches, there's going to be a jury. Tell me about the jury, because they play a very important role.
So yes, as I was just saying earlier, having a broad range of different candidates, it was important for us to bring today a wide selection of different representatives, coming from regulatory, intellectual property, but also finance and business, investors, and scientific experts. And I would like to thank them all here for their great engagement in this project and for this first innovation pitch competition.
Thank you, and indeed, thank you to the jury for spending the time to listen and to really get involved. As I mentioned, there are going to be 2 prizes. There's going to be the jury prize and the public prize. Can you, maybe this is the most important part, tell us what all these prizes are about?
For sure, Jess. Yeah. So the jury award winner will be receiving 1 hour mentoring from each of our jury members, followed by tailor-made workshops that will be given on one hand by Bilin, focusing essentially on the business plan, and by our partners at IMEC iStart. Here, both the jury and the public award will be receiving free access to our physical Brain Innovation Days event that is planned in Brussels this October.
Thank you so much, Timothy. That was really important to state. The prizes are really top-notch and will really impact the winners. So without further ado, I think it's time to say that the pitching session will start. Like I said, there'll be 9 pitches. They each have 180 seconds to pitch. They can only use 6 slides. It's going to be in alphabetical order, and they're hopefully going to grip your attention. So I'd like to say that the first pitch will be given to Braintail. Hi, so I mentioned Braintail, and now I'd like to introduce Julie Rocheline, the CEO of Braintail, who, Julie, right now you can start your pitching.
Thank you. Hi, everyone, and thanks for inviting Braintail to pitch today. I'm co-founder with 3 positions and 2 engineers almost 3 years ago, and I took the CEO-ship of Braintail last autumn to enable adapted care for brain-injured patients by measuring the brain structure in clinical routine. Basically, we develop AI medical devices clinically validated that are changing daily practice in intensive care. Imagine you're an intensivist and you take care of a coma patient. Will she recover from coma? How can I take a decision without knowing exactly brain damages and their consequences on long-term recovery potential? Taking a decision is very difficult given the high uncertainty about long-term outcome, especially when taking a decision means either pursue or withdrawal of life-sustaining therapies, which can vary hugely between 2 medical services. Based on multicentric international clinical studies with more than 500 patients included, based on diffusion MRI, patented and MDR compatible, we have developed a soon-to-be CE-cleared medical device platform, which can predict the clinical outcome for patients still in coma after 7 days. Platform is implemented in clinical routine at La Pitié-Salpêtrière, which is the largest European hospital, and basically today used in approximately 10 centers in research use mode only. Now let's take the example of a cardiac arrest, where neither clinical sign or conventional imaging provide relevant information. Our solution provides not only the microstructural lesion quantification mapping, not visible in traditional imaging, but also provides scoring of either good or low chances of recovery to help taking the right clinical decision with outstanding impact on patient and patient's family. It has been published in the Lancet like 3 years ago. And today, the clinical practice leads market penetration of this new biomarker and its potential in intensive care and neurology, where there is a crucial need for robust and reproducible clinically validated marker. Our ambition is basically to compare with glucose monitoring, which has become the normative biomarker for diabetes diagnostic follow-up. And we would like to do the same with brain biomarker, where brain quant will be used with each brain MRI. We're a French-based AI diagnostic company. We raised 1 billion last year, equity and non-dilutive. And basically, we're based on more than 10 years of international research. We're 10 people with R&D, product development, and sales, and are looking for outstanding talents. And let's rendezvous in 10 years from now to efficiently manage brain-injured patients. Many thanks to all our partners and to all of you for listening to me today.
Thank you very much to Julie. That was an excellent pitch. Well done for starting this competition off. And before we say bye to Julie, we'd like to ask Tom Brackelis from the jury to pose his question to her.
First of all, Julie, congratulations on making it this far, and also thank you for the pitch and sticking to the time. I just have one question. This is, of course, an AI algorithm that could also be implemented by the MRI scanner manufacturers themselves. How do you position yourself against those?
Actually, it cannot, because you need to have, it's post-processing imaging, basically, and you need to calibrate each MRI to make sure that you have something standardized that is reproducible MRI per MRI, basically. So our solution is vendor independent to be able to be offered as widely as possible. Today, we have this demonstration in intensive care, which is where the need was absolutely crucial. That was the clinical question we answered. But tomorrow, and we're actually having a lot of ongoing research programs going on, is to be able to really bring solutions, and basically change the MRI to switch it to something that can be used to take medical decisions, not just as an imaging tool, but as a real diagnostic approach.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much, Julie. Thank you, Tom, for your question. So we've heard the first pitch. Let's go on to the second. We're keeping to the alphabetical order. So EpiHunter. Hello, Tim Bookings from EpiHunter. As I say, I'm introducing all, and then I'll tell you exactly when you start, so don't worry. I hope the audience at home is comfortable. Tim, I hope you're comfortable. And on my go, let's go.
My name is Tim Bookings. I'm the founder and CEO of EpiHunter. And I want to ask the question, what if we could remove the daily life impact of a neurological condition? Let's compare it with my glasses. They do not cure my eyes, but they allow me to participate fully in society. And that's despite my bad eyesight. At EpiHunter, we turn consumer EEG and deep learning algorithms into solutions that decrease the daily life impact of a neurological condition. And while doing so, we also generate real-world data for faster diagnosis, optimized treatment, and new therapies. And our beachhead is absence epilepsy. It is the most common pediatric epilepsy syndrome. Absence epilepsy causes difficult to notice seizures that look mostly like daydreaming, yet to the person themselves, they are a full blackout. Our first CE Class 1 product comes today as a monthly subscription to families in Belgium, UK, and Australia. The simple consumer EEG headset from the Welcome package is connected to a smartphone and people are up and running. The invisible seizures become visible in real time at school, home, and work. No more frustration and miscommunication. The objective data and automated seizure videos are made available to the physician via a secure web portal. And specific features create time savings and cost reductions in a clinical care pathway, from early diagnosis to continuous follow-up on treatments. And the collected data is a valuable resource for innovative research. Today, we currently run an Epilepsy Foundation funded prospective study with Boston Children's Hospital and 3 European reference centers, where we benchmark our solution to the gold standard of clinical video EEG. Very positive intermediate results were already presented last summer at the Epilepsy Foundation Pipeline Conference. And today, we start the next phase in our journey in epilepsy, but also to explore next neurological domains. We will work with patient organizations, research, and pharma to match science with the needs of real people, to identify and build next life-changing solutions, stretching from pre-diagnosis to happy lifelong use every day again. If you want to be part of this, reach out to discuss options. Join me in making these digital solutions as common as the glasses that I'm wearing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tim, for your excellent pitch. Very interesting, this analogy between the glasses and how to deal with epilepsy. Thank you so much. Before you go, Tim, I'd like to ask jury member Stan Verlinden to ask his question.
Tim, thank you for the nice pitch. You seem to have developed a device that is effective, but it's also visible, which can lead to stigmatization. Tell how you intend to address the concerns of patients being stigmatized, which can limit adoption.
That is indeed one of the very first hypotheses that we have proven and shown, is that the stigmatization of the seizures themselves, the impact of the seizures themselves, is much bigger than using the slim technology in a classroom. It even does the opposite of showing other children in the classroom, hey, when the light is on, that's the reason why I'm not reacting or why I'm reacting differently. And when the light is off, it's the same person as always. It makes the epilepsy from invisible to visible, and that's a much higher value than the potential stigmatization of the headset in a setting like a classroom. Also, next to that, the devices, the EEG technology is moving on, and it will become smaller, and better looking form factors will come to market.
Thank you both, Tim and Stan. Very interesting. I like the from invisible to visible. Very interesting, and thank you for that third pitch. And as we go next to the fourth pitch, which is going to be ecometrics. Welcome, Annabelle. You're going to be presenting the pitch for ecometrics, so I hope you're comfortable and I hope you're ready, and I'm sure the audience at home or in the office watching online are definitely going to be ready for you. So, Annabelle, the floor is yours.
1 in 4 people with multiple sclerosis are on a suboptimal treatment. Our goal is to provide patients and their care team with the right monitoring tool to get every patient on the right treatment at the right time. The yellow arrow on this graph illustrates how iCompanion enables a more frequent and continuous follow-up, providing a more complete and an unbiased picture of the patient's well-being outside the yearly hospital visits, which are depicted by the gray bars. Our market consists of the 2.8 million people with MS worldwide and their care teams. While treatment for a typical MS patient costs about $70,000 a year, it's unacceptable that they're on a suboptimal treatment. We believe that our solution can make sure that this money is spent a lot more efficiently by allowing more informed clinical decisions, ultimately improving the clinical follow-up and well-being of this generally young MS population and reducing the immense socioeconomic impact of this disease. We created iCompanion to offer patients with MS an easy tool to track and understand their disease and share their clinical data with their care team. In the app, they can log their symptoms, mood, treatments, and clinically validated patient-reported outcomes. Besides these clinical signs, subclinical data derived from MRI scans are crucial to define individual treatment paths. iCompanion allows patients to upload, view, and understand these MRIs, and members of the care team can download quantitative MRI reports. iCompanion is one of the products of iCometrics, which is a world leader in software solutions to obtain clinically meaningful data from brain MRI and CT scans for patients with neurological disorders and recently also COVID-19. Me and Lars, we gather feedback from patients and neurologists and communicate it back to IT, and together we define and prioritize new features. And next to Steve, who works on the development of the app, lastly, we have Kelly, who makes sure we meet all the regulatory requirements. So let's talk competition, namely MS Copilot, My MS Manager, and Emelin. iCompanion is a CE marked device, hence the data can be used for clinical decision-making. And secondly, it includes a secure data sharing platform for healthcare professionals. Next, we have an integration with quantitative MRI reports. This way, neurologists can base their decision on both clinical and subclinical data. Lastly, the app is currently available in 6 languages, increasing our potential target market. iCompanion is an answer to the growing demand for more personalized medicine by leveraging objective clinical and imaging data into predictive models for disease progression. We will continue to implement new features such as video consultations and try to expand our markets to other diseases, while always working closely with patients and their care team. If you feel like we can work together to take these steps, please contact us and help us make the lives of people with MS a little better.
Thank you so much, Annabelle. Excellent pitch, very interesting. Love the graphics, but don't go straight away because we have one question for you from Ilsa, the member of the jury. Ilsa?
Thank you for the pitch indeed. What do you think protects you from future competitors? What makes your solution innovative, and what would stop future competitors from copying your app or building something similar?
I think a large advantage we have right now is that we're using clinically validated patient-reported outcomes. So there's some other apps, but it's mostly wellness type apps rather than really medical devices. So our app wants to stand out in the sense that we are a medical device, and our company has a lot of experience in all the regulatory aspects of becoming a medical device. So I think that's a big advantage. But of course, there will be competition. I think that the combination with the brain volumetrics, which are quantitative and which have been shown to have a lot of value in disease prediction, like the progression prediction. I think that really makes us stand out from the rest. But yeah, we're ready for some competition.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Annabelle. Ilse, excellent question, excellent answer, and I like the attitude, ready for competition. Right, we're keeping the competition going here. We're on to pitch number 5, that will be ILOF. Welcome welcome to Ilof and Temerek Mumtaz, who is the COO and the co-founder. Merak, as I said, you have 180 seconds. You have 6 slides. I hope you're comfortable. I hope you're ready, because we are. And you can go now.
Hello, everyone. It is a pleasure to be presenting today at this platform. I'm the founder of Intelligent Lab on Fiber. We're tackling one of the biggest healthcare challenges of our century, Alzheimer's disease. It's a terrifying disease which, despite multiple efforts, does not have a treatment in the market. One of the reasons behind this failure lies in the way that patients are recruited into clinical trials. Current screening methods, they fail to achieve efficient inclusion and stratification of patients by either being invasive or costly and inconvenient, and that eventually causes 90% of patients to leave trials, making trials much more expensive than other diseases. This is the heart of the problem that we're solving at Ilof. We're enabling the development of personalized therapies for complex heterogeneous diseases like Alzheimer's. We do this through our patented platform technology, which can stratify patients for clinical trials. This enables trial sponsors to save 40% of their screening costs, reduce 70% of the time, at the same time make the process humane and convenient for patients. How does it work? Our patented platform, it analyzes blood samples that are derived from patients using a laser beam guided through an optical fiber. A backscattered signal is then acquired and processed into an optical fingerprint of the sample. Finally, this fingerprint is then compared with our cloud-based fingerprint library for potential matches. That leads to detection of biomarkers and profiles for patient screening and stratification in a minimally invasive, rapid, low-cost, and adaptable way. Our mission is to transform the way that patients are enrolled and monitored into clinical trials, and our ultimate goal is to become a fundamental part of clinical routines through offering personalized treatments based on patient profiles. And this is not all. Ilof is a validated platform technology, and our vision is to expand our cloud-based fingerprint library to accelerate personalized treatments for complex heterogeneous diseases with unmet need, like Parkinson's, multiple sclerosis, and traumatic brain injury. We're well positioned to achieve this. In this past year, we've built multiple partnerships, initiated 3 clinical studies, generated proprietary data bank, also gained traction from blue chip pharma, including Roche and Janssen, and a revenue generating partnership with the UK-based biotech. We've raised more than 3 million euros of investment from EIT Health, Microsoft, and Mayfield Fund, and our work has also been recognized by CB Insights as a global top 150 digital health company. This is the team that's making this happen. It's comprised of more than 15 scientists, entrepreneurs, and investors based in Oxford and Porto, and we're supported by an incredible group of pharma and tech executives. To continue to accelerate our growth, we're currently engaging with strategic investors as we plan our next investment round, and we'd love to hear from interested individuals in the audience. Also, if you're a researcher or a biotech looking for more efficient ways for drug development, please also reach out. 1 person in the world develops dementia every 3
Thank you very much, Marek, for this excellent presentation. A lot of information to take in on board, but critical, obviously, for the world population and Alzheimer's. Anne Savoie from the jury, if you want, you may ask your question.
Thank you for your pitch, very interesting. My question regards your interaction with pharmaceutical companies. There are some standards in clinical studies, and do they have to adapt their clinical design to your fingerprints data, or do you adapt to these standards?
Our technology is a completely portable technology that can be integrated into clinical sites. So it's an addition. It's not really an additional step. It fits in very easily in the clinical trial protocol. Blood is already taken during clinical studies. We only require small volumes of the sample, around 150 microliters. And in the first place, we actually can also use frozen samples. So we're using those partnerships to be able to prove the efficacy of our platform. Following on from that, we will then be integrated into clinical trials. But as I mentioned, so it fits in very neatly in the protocol currently.
If I have time, I have a second question. You said that your platform is patented. What's the status of your portfolio?
So we have a PCT on the method and the device, and we've actually just submitted 2 further patents on other refinements as well as another application.
Thank you very much, Merak and Anne. We're now halfway through the pitching competition. I've learned a lot so far. I feel the stakes are very high, so let's see what happens next. And the sixth pitch will be Neuromind. So, without further ado, as I say, just wait for me to give the go-ahead. Peter Kuban will be presenting this sixth pitch. Peter, you have 180 seconds to pitch. Now you can start.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm a neurosurgeon. Last week, when I was on call, we got a young lady in severe coma based on a brain bleeding. I have to make a decision whether to operate or not. If I start operating on a brain already too much damaged, she will live her life very handicapped. And if I don't operate, she dies. Now, how to make this midnight irreversible decision? I want to apply the best available evidence, but every year, almost 1 million articles get published. So that's not the way. What I want is this: interactive clinical decision support, in which I select the item for which I need help. I tap the items which are applicable for this individual patient, and then I get a recommendation for this individual patient. This is Neuromind. I developed this app already 10 years ago. By now, 34 interactive tools, 130 classification systems, and every year, 75,000 users. Now, when I operate, I frequently use medical devices. And when I talk to people from the medical device industry, they have another challenge. They want to reach out to neurosurgeons at the moment of clinical decision making. That's exactly where we are. So what we can offer them brand transcending, on-demand product training, on-demand product support, market insight, surveys, advertisements, and that's of value to them because that's what they can't do on themselves. Now, why would they choose us? Neuromind is the world's #1 neurosurgical decision support app. This is a screenshot of Neuromind Analytics, and these are neurosurgical associations which actually endorse our app. Now think about it. Worldwide, there are about 50,000 neurosurgeons, and each of them makes about 10 evidence-based decisions a day. There's a potential of 100 million decisions every year, and if we add neurologists, it's 500 million. So this is where we're heading. This means these 4 people at this moment. I'm the founder and CEO of the company. My name is Peter Kibbe. We've got John Marek, experienced business developer, Adriana Bellanger, data science, and Catherine Bessel, project designer and neuroethics consultant. The company is supported by the university the university and the incubator. And right now we're collaborating with industry to provide the features which I just described. But there is more, because we are already collecting data with user-informed consent, and we want to transform these data into value to support high-quality neurosurgical and neurological care in Europe and beyond. So we're looking for partners to increase traffic, users, and usage to the app, to expand on content and add proprietary content, AI, machine learning, to add pharmacological content for neurologists, and to work on a data-driven business model. So if you like this, let's move forward together on this road where data becomes value for neurosurgery.
Thank you very much, John. Excellent pitch, very interesting numbers. Before you leave, I'd just like to ask jury president Mark Ferguson to ask his question.
Can I ask a couple of questions? Sure. What is the CE mark or medical device status of your device? And also, how do you plan to make it pay? Who's going to pay for your device? Is it the users, or is it the advertisements, or the medical device companies?
Currently is a CE class 1 device already since 2014. It's ready for the MDR, which will go into effect soon. And the business model is, the app is free of charge for the clinical users. The business model is by the medical device industry and potentially also pharma if we have neurologists. So the features which are just added, that will be something that we currently are starting with, and industry interviews already demonstrated they find this very interesting. So to get started, we collaborate with industry on on-demand product support, on-demand product training, advertisements, surveys. The market insight, the analytics, so transforming data into value, that would be the next step. And that's something which we really would like to partner up and get some further help on.
Thank you very much for this sixth pitch. Very interesting. There's a lot happening and very clear data that was shared. Now we're moving on to the seventh pitch, which is PIPRA. John, welcome. I hope you're comfortable. I'm sure you've prepped for this. So now you may speak and present.
I want to tell you a true story about Hans, one of millions of people every year who goes to the hospital for a routine surgery, such as a knee replacement, and wakes up in a much worse state than when they arrived, feeling disoriented, hallucinating, struggling with memory, and often ending up in a nursing home. And all they wanted was a little more mobility. This is often a result of post-operative delirium, a post-surgical complication that affects 20% of all surgical patients over the age of 60. As with Hans, POD has serious negative outcomes. It doubles nursing home admissions, costs billions to insurers, has a 25% mortality rate within 1 month, and affects 59 million people globally per year. There is no treatment, so we must focus on prevention. The good news is that prevention works, but effective treatments are too costly to deploy for every patient. By identifying patients most in need, surgical staff compliance can be greatly improved. Our solution is to decrease the incidence by creating a reliable, quick, cost-effective risk assessment tool, indicating a patient's risk score prior to surgery, allowing for preventive measures to be taken for high-risk patients, thereby reducing costs and improving outcomes. Our value for patients, improved quality of life and the right to be informed, for hospitals and clinicians, reduced costs and improved outcomes, and for public health, also reduced cost through reduced need for assisted living. And when we talk about AI-driven software, of course, we need to talk about data. And we've been able to secure over 20,000 patients worth of raw, valuable data, by far the largest database in the world on POD, used to train our algorithm. We own this data, giving us both IP and business protection. Our software is now in its final phase of development for CE certification and launch. And we already have a very good prediction model with an area under the curve 0.82. And there are over 22,000 hospitals in our target market, which equals a total addressable market size of 7.7 billion euros per year. In our beachhead market, we already have 6 hospitals interested in pilot projects. Our business model: hospitals save through reduced length of hospital stay and reduced staffing costs. A budget impact analysis showed that we could save a mid-sized public hospital in Switzerland 2.2 million Swiss francs per year. And finally, we have a passionate, dedicated, multidisciplinary team headed by Nayeli Schmutz, an anesthesiologist, Ben Dodsworth, a cell biologist, and myself, a serial entrepreneur, accompanied by experts in AI, research, marketing, and finance, and supported by a brilliant advisory board with 3 key opinion leaders. Together with our advisors, partners, and investors, we can help ensure that people like Hans have a better chance of leaving the hospital better than when they arrived. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John. Excellent pitch. Very good use of a real story, so we really understand what's happening on the ground and what can be done. Before you leave, I'd like again to ask jury president Mark Ferguson for a quick question before we close the 7th pitch.
Very interesting pitch. Can I ask about your business model? I mean, business models that rely on hospital savings are often quite difficult because you'll have the occasional patient that has delirium despite the preventative treatment. How confident are you that hospitals will pay to use your app? And can you also clarify the CE status for me, please? Thank you.
We conducted a very extensive external budget impact analysis specifically for the hospital to see what kind of value we could create for the hospital. The average POD patient has an increased length of stay of 2.9 days, which turns into a direct cost to the hospital. And there is no actual reimbursement in most countries that we've looked at specifically for post-operative delirium. There's no extended reimbursement. So this is a huge savings opportunity, as I mentioned, up to 2.2 million Swiss francs in a base case for a Swiss public hospital, a mid-sized hospital. So we think we have a very good business case. We've spoken to several hospitals. We have 6 hospitals interested in pilots specifically for that reason. Our CE mark, so we are scheduled to be CE certified as a Class 1 device in March, April this year.
Thank you very much, John, and thank you, Mark, once again. So we only have 2 more pitches. The competition is heating up. It's going very quickly. There's so much to learn that we have learned, and there's still 2 more pitches. So we're going to go straight to Polycure. So Rebecca, welcome. I'm sure you're excited. We've all been waiting for this. I'm sure you have as well. So I'm going to leave you the floor. Go for it.
I'm Rebecca Coppenal from Center for Biomedical Research in Portugal, and I'm here to present you Polycure, a novel gene therapy for polyglutamine diseases. So these are a group of highly incapacitating hereditary disorders affecting the brain. There is no cure for these diseases, which culminates in the premature death of the patients. Polycure is a one-shot and curative gene therapy for spinocerebellar ataxia type 3 that is also expendable for the other polyglutamine diseases. So, Polycure was first developed for patients suffering from SCA3 that affects more than 46,000 people worldwide. SCA3 onset occurs during adulthood, causing a debilitating motor function with cognitive and physiological impairments for the patients. Until now, the only current solution for this disease is symptomatic alleviation that does not offer a long-term solution for this fatal disease. And this is where we act. We are going to the root of the problem. So SCA3 is caused by a genetic mutation that leads to the accumulation of a toxic protein in the patient's brains. So Polycure, that we developed, blocks this toxic expression, leading to neuronal rescue. Once delivered at Polycure as a gene therapy, it will be a good reversion of the disease. So, Polycure already proved successful in reducing the disease anomalies in preclinical studies. It also ameliorates both the molecular anomalies of the disease and as well as the motor deficits, and importantly, it shows a good safety profile. At this point, we have submitted a provisional patent application for Polycure, and we know that we want to continue its development, aiming to deliver Polycure to the market. So, what are our next steps? Next, we aim to create a startup company and build the foundations to turn our therapeutic approach into a valuable commercial product. As our therapy fits in the rare diseases category, we will aim to accelerate the process by entering the human trials in 4 years. And that 4 years of development correspond to a calculated investment of 4.5 million euros that include the manufacturing of our product, the toxicology and dosage finding assays, and the approval from the regulatory agencies. And as we know, there is an urgent and unmet need for advanced therapeutic strategies targeting rare neurodegenerative diseases. Polycure meets that need and also has a prospect of being a profitable therapy. We are a team of experts in the field of molecular neuroscience and gene therapy, and we have the values and the know-how to take this project further. With you, we believe that we can take Polycure to the patients and change their lives.
Thank you very much, Rebecca. Excellent pitch. Very, very interesting. Don't go away because we have a question for you by jury member Benedict Luhmann. Benedict, if you can ask your question.
Rebecca, thanks for the pitch. Very impressive. Could you elaborate a little bit on mode of action, your virus you are using, and the USP and the patent you have submitted?
So we found a molecular target then that we know we can use as a plasmid to inject our molecular target into the animals. So we use in our animal models, we use lentiviral particles to inject our plasmid with our gene target into the animals. And that's the way we are aiming to humans. We are aiming to do an intrathecal injection with that viral particles and deliver our gene. So regarding the patent, we have submitted a provisional patent application. So we are at the beginning, but we are taking the necessary steps to take this provisional patent application into an effective patent.
Thank you very much, Rebecca and Benedict. And like I said, there were 9 pitches and we're already at the 9th pitch. I would like to say thank you to all of you for waiting. And last but not least, we'd like to introduce Virtue Leap. Amir, I feel that you must have been very patient because you've watched everyone go in front of you, but now it's your turn. We're all excited. Like I say, 180 seconds. The time starts now for you.
420 million people around the world suffer from cognitive impairment and have a high risk of developing into Alzheimer's disease, one of many cognitive illnesses that has no cure. Current drugs can only manage the symptoms, even though there are hundreds of neuroscience-based drugs right now stuck in the approval process that could potentially offer life-changing applications. We're talking about a $1 trillion market. So what's stopping it from happening? Outdated methods and tools that are either too slow or too ineffective to validate them. Hi, I'm Amir, co-founder and CEO at Virtue Leap, the company that is using neuroscience and virtual reality to help pharmaceutical companies accelerate the approval of neuroscience-based drugs by better profiling the patient segments that have the best possible treatment outcomes. Current cognitive assessment tools are limited and lacking because screen-based devices fail to engage and track our whole body. Virtual reality is the answer because it's the first digital format to trigger our autonomic nervous system into believing that the experience is real. Which is why we created Enhanced VR, a library of VR games designed by our neuroscientists as translations of standardized neuropsychological assessment tools like the Stroop test and the NBAC task into 3D rendered environments that test and train a range of cognitive abilities, not just including our memory, task switching, problem solving, and information processing skills, but also our motor skills, spatial orientation, and spatial audio awareness. And we make all of that data accessible through our enterprise platform. The amount of data that we collect is unprecedented. Just 3 minutes of playing our games generates over 200,000 data points in one full session, over 1 million, which means that we're collecting an order of magnitude more data about the human condition than any other digital solution. The volumetric data is a combination of granular player interaction with rich full body sensory data that is impossible to capture with screen-based formats that exclude the body. We're collecting body positioning, postures, hand analysis, so that we can even detect subtle movements like tremors and handshaking. Our first paid client is the AARP, and we're partnered with major institutions like the Pacific Brain Health Center, as well as the VA healthcare system and Rockefeller University Hospital. We're working with leading researchers and experts in the field of cognitive science and neurodegenerative diseases to validate our solution as correlating, 1, to traditional methodologies, including neuroimaging and other biometrics like EEG and eye tracking, with our first wave of clinical studies beginning this year. My co-founder and CTO, Hossein, and I have been working together for over 9 years. He's exited one fitness and wellness app, and I'm a leading expert in the field, having covered the evolution of VR for blogs like VentureBeat for the past 5 years. We've also recently brought on board our chief science officer with a background in Alzheimer's research and biomarkers. Our team is a mix of scientists and game developers that believe that the intersection of emerging tech with social impact can help us tackle the biggest social challenges facing us today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Amir. Brilliant presentation. Thank you for being so patient and waiting to be the last one to present. Before you leave, Amir, I'd like Kun Thibault from the jury to ask you one final question.
Thank you for your pitch. You started by saying you were targeting pharma. I was wondering why not make it a standalone product, and wouldn't you need a CE mark as a medical device for that, or even to further process the discussions with the pharma?
Very awesome question. You know, our roadmap ahead is windy all the way from beginning the clinical studies that begin as of this month with Valdebrón in Barcelona, 24-month study of doing clinical validation to correlate ourselves to traditional methodologies, show we're faster, better, more reliable, and even generate evidence for FAR transfer, transferability for the therapeutic effects. Now, that requires us to get the funding, the team on board, and to finalize those studies and then pursue validation with regulatory bodies when those studies have concluded. Between now and then, the beachhead market with pharma is more purposed because they're actually in big need for companion diagnostics like digital companies like ourselves. And they are interested in, for example, pilot studies where we could work together to serve as a next generation cognitive assessment tool, yes, on the one hand, but also a next generation data collection tool.
Thank you, Amir and Koen. Sorry, Amir, if we had to cut you off, but we're quite strict when it comes to timing. Before we get into the next session, I really want to thank each and every one that pitched. It's not an easy job. It's quite nerve-wracking. The pressure was on, but you all did fantastic jobs. The questions were very interesting, the answers as well. And I was really impressed by both the men and the women pitching. So good luck to all of you. The jury is now going to retreat into a virtual room. So we'll let them gather and check and compare notes and take a decision. I just want to let you know that the public can vote now. You can access your one vote through Slido on the right of your screen. There's an interactivity button, so don't hesitate, get into there, think about it and cast your vote. So whilst the decisions are being made and the 9 pitchers can relax, we're going to go into a second session of debating, and this is all about unlocking EU startup potential, but also looking at real cases, things that have happened, that are happening, so that others can learn what is possible and also where it's going to go next. So without further ado, let's get into this session. I would like to say hello once again to Francois. Francois, thank you for staying with us. I hope you enjoyed the pitching, and I'm going to let you moderate this session, introduce the speakers, and get straight into it. Thank you.
I really enjoyed the pitch, indeed. First, I would like to introduce the 4 panelists of this next session. So I'll do it alphabetically. And so we have the wonderful opportunity to have 2 entrepreneurs, people who successfully started a small company, and they're going to talk about their experience. And we have also 2 persons that play a very, very important role in the ecosystem. We're basically providing support services and incubators and financial and advice support for startups. So let me start with Ludovic Amp. Is the strategic growth lead and co-founder of Helpilepsy. Hello, Ludovic. And hi. And Kim Baden-Christensen, who is the CEO of co-founder of Brain Plus. Welcome.
Hello.
Hi. And on the support side, we have Elena Fernandez-Kleinlein, who is the head of JLabs EMEA. JLabs is the innovation incubator of Johnson & Johnson. Hello, Elena.
Hi, Francois.
How are you doing?
Everybody.
And last but not least, Irene Sanchez is the business creation manager of EIT Health, with the knowledge and innovation community of the European Institute of Innovation and Technology.
Hello, everyone.
Irene. Hi. So my first question will be to, maybe we'll start with Ludovic. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience in the last few years, what your idea was, and in a couple of minutes, tell us where you are and the challenges faced and how you overcame it, and then we'll turn to Kim.
Yes, so the idea came because the brother of one of my co-founders has epilepsy, and we saw that today epilepsy care, we have the vision that we can improve epilepsy care today with technology. And our mission is to empower people living with epilepsy. And so that's why we came up with Helpelepsy, which is a digital monitoring platform consisting of a self-management application for the patients and a decision support tool for physicians to have better data, to have better outcomes. We started the company now 4 years ago. We're now present in 3 continents and more than 10 countries. And you asked me what was the biggest challenge the last years, and actually it's something that we already heard in the pitches just before, is everything which is IT security and regulatory. We had some pharmaceutical contracts with big clauses on, for instance, CE mark, ISO 13485. And so it was a big effort from the entire team the last 2 years to get those all certifications and to be sure that we could do business with pharmaceutical companies. And the impact on the company was quite big, and we're quite proud that we managed to deliver all those things on time.
Terrific. Kim, can you tell us a little bit about Brain Plus?
Yeah, hello everybody. So at Brain Plus, our mission is to help people with brain disorders to both treat those brain disorders and prevent them using gamified digital therapeutics. And our aim is to get people back to full independence and quality of life. Our focus is on cognition, which is one of the both symptoms and also sometimes the causes of brain disorders. Common to all brain disorders is that people, they lose their ability to think, to concentrate, to regulate their behavior. And we have seen how you can use gamified methods, both in terms of behavioral interventions, but also just cognitive rehabilitation to help people overcome some of those challenges. So that's primarily what we do. We work with clinicians and patients, scientists and academics to actually make that happen. I think one of the big challenges have been to really make sure you got the right cross-functional team in place to handle such a multifaceted challenge. It's really, really important to succeed, to have the right people in place. I mean, we definitely learned that the hard way. And we've been at this for about 9 years now. And that also goes hand in hand, of course, with then overcoming regulatory challenges, getting the right trials, the right clinical evidence, etc. And for you to succeed with that, you first need to have the right people on board. So I think that's been one of my key learnings and challenges.
Thank you. Let me turn to Elena and Irene. Can you say a few words about how JLabs would help a young startup of that type get off the ground and scale up, as Mark said earlier?
Sure. Glad and thank you for the invite today. So JLabs, as you just mentioned beforehand, is the premier life science and biotech incubator network. It's a global network of incubators for Johnson & Johnson. And we are one of them, based here in Europe. The actual physical location of the incubator is in Belgium, which is quite a vibrant ecosystem for biotech companies in itself. And what we're offering, the way we're looking at it is, we like to see this as, industry corporates being able to offer the benefits of a bigger company like J&J to startups. And we really like to think of this as a potential toolbox that they can tap into and how we can help them. So the value proposition really primarily consists, on the one hand side, on the infrastructure, and I think that is not differentiated to other incubators out there. Infrastructure in the sense that we're offering labs, biology labs, microbiology and chemistry labs. They're fully equipped, and I think this is important for any entrepreneur that needs a laboratory space, because they don't have to start actually buying equipment. It's a fully equipped lab. And we're also supporting the teams with our operation team on site, meaning that they take care of all the things that are happening in the lab. And so the scientists can really focus on developing and accelerating the science. I think beyond the classical infrastructure, what we really believe is a differentiator for us at JLabs is the mentoring program that we give, because we are an industry incubator. It's and we have real experts of J&J that can actually help mentor and guide companies moving along. We've heard a lot around regulatory questions. This is one of the key hurdles to a lot of the companies, because they don't know when they are at the beginning of the development of the technologies, how to develop it further from a regulatory perspective. The other aspects are around funding opportunities. We have created an investor hub where we can actually leverage our connections from our JJDC, our strategic venture arm, and offer up companies, the good relationships that we have within the VC community, and hopefully connect them to the right VCs when they are fundraising. But we're also doing a lot around programming, giving them visibility, and nurturing them from that perspective, connecting them to the right stakeholders externally as well as internally. And I think one last one is really that global network. Particularly when you want to scale up and you want to scale up in different geographies, the fact that JLabs is connected globally enables companies that are based in Europe to quickly, sort of embrace the other ecosystems, whether it's in Asia or in North America. So I think there's a real good evidence and a couple of examples that we have where we've been able to actually help these companies.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Elena. Irene, a few words about EIT Health and indeed how you can provide support to budding companies.
Yeah, sure. First of all, thank you for your invitation. As you said, EIT Health is a knowledge and innovation community of the EIT, the European Institute for Innovation and Technology. We focus only on health and aging, and we are totally committed to strengthen the healthcare system in Europe and to promote better health for citizens, and at least at the end to contribute to the sustainability of the health ecosystem in Europe. Since 2016, we have supported more than almost 800 startups, which have raised more than 248 million. And from those startups today, we have here 6. I was surprised to see 6 of them pitching, which is an amazing. So what we offer, I think the gap is clearly being defined. In Europe, we have 2 main gaps. The first is converting research into tangible products and tangible products and services that fit market needs, and scaling up companies. So with this idea, our accelerator program have 4 main axes, which is access to knowledge, access to market, access to stakeholders, and access to funding. So within those boxes, we have several programs to support entrepreneurs on their needs.
Wonderful. Thank you. Let me turn to Ludovic and Kim, maybe, and either of you can respond to both. You mentioned some of the challenges you had, hiring the right people, finding the right competencies, understanding the regulatory landscape. How did you navigate those challenges, and did you know where to find help to do these things?
Kim, you can start if you want to.
Yeah, sure. I think, yes, finding help and asking for advice is a great place to start. I think one of the things that we've been lucky and have succeeded with is having some great collaborators and partners in terms of some of the best experts within the clinical areas of Alzheimer's disease, for example, or acquired brain injury. Working with good consultants is another way to go about it, or having a lot of conversations with these people. So you yourself I have a business background. I don't have a medical background, although I studied a bit of cognitive psychology after starting the company. But you need to kind of acquire all of that knowledge at least as a CEO, and then make sure that you have either the competences in-house or you get a really good advisory board. And some of these things can, at least in the early stages, be covered with advisors. But I would say also in hindsight, the earlier you can get somebody in with regulatory expertise, market access expertise on your team, if you want to go down that path, the easier it will be for you to kind of make sure that you don't have to rewind the clock or spend another 2 years doing clinical trials. So there's also just this matter of getting either advisors or team members as early on as possible.
Yeah, I can add anything.
Same. We had very good consultants from the beginning, so really go to the experts from day one. Next to that, we had multiple discussions with other startups because I think a lot of people are struggling with the same questions. And the third one is indeed find the good ecosystems, find the good accelerators. That's also great help. And then indeed, I echo Kim. I think our fourth hire was somebody full-time on quality and regulatory, and I think that was one of the best choices we've made in terms of team.
Interesting. Irene or Elena, how do you look at potential candidates, and what are the key decision criteria for investing or supporting a startup?
Yeah, sure. I can ask, maybe start, and then have Irene comment on that. So what we're looking at JLabs is really focusing on the science, and it has to be convincing, robust science. Now, it hasn't. The early stage companies that are coming in are not going to have the complete proof of the concept, but it has to be based on some solid pre-work or some good scientific foundations there. And I think we also look very clearly at whether it's meeting an unmet medical need, and how it actually is able to also address health equality in that sense. The other thing we look at is the strength of the team, and I think clearly, Ludovic and Kim have already alluded to that in terms of not only the management team and the board, but also the advisors and who they are connected in the ecosystem with. And that is a very big part of the credibility of the team and the strength of actually being able to accelerate the technologies of the company. So that's a second point we look at. And I think one of the important things is at the beginning, when companies come into JLabs, we don't really like to get any rights or IP. We really want to do this on a non-confidential basis to give the companies the comfort to say, look, what we're here for is looking at whether we can help add value to you in order to accelerate your company. While we later on in the process are actually able to set up confidentiality agreements and go more in depth into the conversations, we do not request that upfront, and that is not a criteria for us to bring the companies in. And I think the other bit I would say is we're also not looking at taking equity from the companies when they come in. There's a lot of accelerators and incubators that do that, and I think that is one of the differentiators for us too.
Thank you very much. Irene.
Just to add on what Elena says, so I fully agree. It's an A idea with an A team. So research is super important, but also the team, the commitment of the team. And again, to cover a global unmet need. So what does it mean? So we support startups from all over Europe. We support them through our regional innovation hubs. But at the end, we want that this need is a global need. And a global means that it's not only something that is relevant into the Spanish market, but the same idea with the same solution has a fit in other European markets and even globally to support them on the scaling phase. And again, we look for entrepreneurs and startups that are willing or that see an added value engaging with our community, which is, I think, something unique from EAD Health. The community, the academia, the research centers, the industrial partners, the healthcare providers, the investors that we have in our ecosystem.
Thank you, Irene. Question back to Ludovic and Kim. We've seen through the pitch, and certainly both of your business model, there is a lot of great ideas and increasing competition in the digital health, decision-making tools going forward. How would you look at what you're proposing, and how you're going to differentiate from all of these other potential competitors? What are the key points? And I really want to focus particularly on early clinical validation, how you're addressing both of these challenges, the multiplicity of competition and then this ability to generate clinical validation as rapidly as possible.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't say, I think that clinical validation and regulatory approval, if we're looking 5-10 years down the road, that will just be where all the winning solutions will be. So you would need to go through that. I mean, you can still have consumer health apps, which is a slightly different story. It's less medical apps, right?
Thousands of them.
So that's not really, that will not be a differentiator. It'll just be a requirement. Differentiators will then come into play in other areas, whether you have a technologically superior solution or you have superior patient engagement or you have superior understanding of the patient pathway and where your device will be used, because this is where you can carve really your niche for specific user segments or in specific use cases. In our case, we do believe a lot in the power of games as well. So that's one of the areas where we want to differentiate ourselves to create very, very strong patient engagement. But other health apps may have very different differentiators like superior data analysis and outcomes or superior personalization or whatever you might be talking about. So those are just a few viewpoints on that.
Ludovic?
Yes, I think it's very positive that there are multiple initiatives in same pathologies. So I see competition as a quite positive point. I think the differentiation will be indeed in two ways. First of all, is the integration in the care pathway. So how do you integrate with physicians what they currently do? How can you improve that? And secondly is integration with devices. So first with consumer devices as well like existing electronic medical records, how you are really fully integrated technically with those. So I think those two will be differentiators.
Okay. And then just to talk about how you can address it. I mean, one of the ways that we addressed it was with big innovation grants, working in open collaboration projects where you had external, academic institutions and clinical institutions help design clinical trials and validate them and validate our products. So that's just one of the ways. Another one is to get early results in your own lab if you're a university-based spin-off, and then if those results are good enough, you get somebody like Elena to accept you into the JLabs, or you get some investors to believe in you and fund your actual further clinical development, right? So those are two slightly different approaches to it.
Maybe let me ask you, did you, either of you, Ludovic and Kim, did you work with EIT Health or, an industry incubator network like JLabs? If yes, why? If no, why not?
We've been through a couple of accelerators earlier in the Brain Plus history. Right now, we're considering whether to take more accelerators that are more specialized in specific country markets. I think it's useful, but there my recommendation would definitely be to, if you want to be a medical device type product, then make sure that you do something, take an accelerator that is focused on your specialty rather than a more general health accelerator. EIT Health, I'm sure, is very good because it has both the digital side and the health side. So you'll get kind of both there as a good basis especially if you're early stage, I think.
Ludovic?
Yes, we participated in 2 programs of EIT Health. We have quite a good experience with them. Next to that, we also joined IMEC iStart, which Ilse is actually our coach. So we have quite good feedback on that one. We had a look at JLabs, but already a couple of years ago. And at that moment, it was not exactly the expertise that we were looking for, because we're fully digital and we don't like the lab part is a little bit less interesting for us. But after our discussion with Elena last week, I heard there were a lot of digital companies as well that are part of that. And I think especially in our geographic expansion, we'll definitely look back at it.
Terrific. Let me turn the stage to all of you. Do you have questions for each other? Any of you would like to ask something to one of the other participants? I have a couple more, but please.
Yeah, maybe Elena, how do you see the requirements for, what do you look for in differentiation besides going through a regulatory process and getting clinical evidence when you look at the companies?
Yeah, it's a good point, because we do actually constantly look at how is this company differentiating enough, and a lot comes down to data, and particularly in these health tech platform opportunities. I think a lot of them are using similar questionnaires or similar approaches in actually gathering the data. So that cannot be the actual differentiator. So the question is now, if you get in and collect and monitor all that data, what do you do with that data that is different and can actually provide a superior outcome? And I think that is the critical part. And how do you develop those algorithms that are differentiating? Is it predictive analytics that you're looking at in terms of, for example, predicting the next relapse of a particular disease? Is it the real-time feedback loop that you are bringing into the game to actually convince also healthcare professionals at the spot to use the device or the platform? So I think there are elements, but we're constantly looking at how validated those elements are within the company's technologies and solutions. And I think there is a lot in the back end that data collecting is not a differentiator today. Everybody does it in different ways, shapes, and forms. The question is, what do you do with that data, and how powerful can that data be to direct superior outcomes?
Ludovic, anything you'd like to ask Irene or Helena?
I have actually a question for Kim. Yes, sorry for that. Yeah, Kim, you were speaking about like some grants that can accelerate research. Which grants do you mean exactly? I just want to make sure maybe we missed some on our list. So I'm curious to hear what you did in the past.
Sure. I mean, the grants that we've been successful with have been some of the Horizon 2020 grants. It's been the Eurostars grants, but it's also been local grants here in Denmark. There's something called the Danish Innovation Fund, and I'm sure that each national country has some national funding bodies and grant schemes that can be tapped into, whether you're in Europe or you're in the States. So, and we have the Lundbeck Foundation here in Denmark, focused a lot on brain research. We haven't gotten a grant from them, but it's one of our target grant organizations as well.
Maybe we're getting closer. I've one last question, maybe to all of you. How is brain research unique in this innovation landscape? I mean, Mark was mentioning earlier, the science is still advancing, but those are complex diseases, heterogeneous disease. I'm fairly familiar with epilepsy for sure, seizure types, etiology. We really don't know that much. MS, cognition even, many different etiologies. The pathophysiology is not really completely clear. Does it make it uniquely difficult to develop an app or a solution in that field? And how do you, on the support side, look at brain research versus other categories?
I mean, in a sense, yes, it does make it uniquely challenging, but it's also a unique opportunity for digital, which is capable of doing data analysis and user stratification and personalization of treatment, right? So in that sense, it's very unique to that, whether you're talking treatment or even if you're looking at trying to stratify potential patient or subsegments of disease. I'm imagining that in 10 years from now, we might be talking about 10 different types of Alzheimer's disease, 10 different types of depression, based on, because these are multifactorial diseases. They have to do with environment, emotional state of the brain, diet, social habits, a lot of other things, toxins. There are many factors that could be determining the type of or the subtype of any disease and what's the most effective treatments. And here I think digital solutions have a great power to both help make that distinction and also make more personalized interventions.
Ludovic, maybe a word, and love to hear Irene, and who's been quiet, and Elena. Ludovic, any was that particularly challenging when you look with other entrepreneurs?
Yeah, I think Kim covered it quite well. I think indeed, as we will collect more and more data with digital, it will just give us more insight and it will lead to personalized medicine. So quite convinced on that. Indeed, every pathology is very specific. So that's why if we look at other pathologies, we always look with the right, who's the key opinion leader, which is the patient association there, what's already been done, can we partner up with organizations already in the field. And so that's why indeed every app is a new journey, is a new discovery. So we always almost start from scratch.
Irene, comment? Do you look at brain research differently?
No, sure. I completely agree with Kim and Ludovic, and also with Mark, what said before. There is a lot of unknown yet. But for example, getting feedback from our entrepreneurs, the clinical validation and the clinical trials is one of the most hardest things. As I love presented, there is a lot of drugs and technologies that are not arriving to the market because the recruitment for the clinical trials and validation is not easy to done. So what we discover, for example, is that in Denmark or in the Scandinavian countries in general, there are a lot of registers and biobanks with data, even in Australia for Alzheimer. So this is something that in Spain, for example, for instance, is not super well known. And through platforms or European accelerators, you can get access to this know-how, but in addition to those samples, which at the end can accelerate the research and the markets into the market, and the products into the market. So, for instance, I think this is one of the feedback that I most receive from entrepreneurs working on the brain area.
Very, very good point. I think it ties back to what Horik was saying, the opportunity for Europe to really build on the quality of the healthcare system and collect indeed data with all of the ethical and compliance issues, but certainly build on that, on the availability and organize. I mean, we've been working with patient organization to build on registries, and it's still very, very atomized around Europe. So it's certainly a great opportunity. Elena, any comments? Maybe you have a global view, so I'd be interested to see what you see as unique.
I think to your point, it's definitely neuroscience has been pioneering, I would say, the digital, involvement of digital health and technologies into the space. And I think one of the reasons probably is because pharmaceutical companies also, have had maybe less of a success in a lot of this heavy clinical studies in Alzheimer's disease and others. So because there is a great unmet medical need, particularly in this area, I think there is greater openness and flexibility to bring in other solutions. And I thought today and today's pitches, actually, we saw the spectrum from what solutions you can actually look for in this space, ranging from gene therapy over to VR and patient stratification tools and platforms. So it is quite a broad spectrum, and I'm quite excited actually that in neuroscience we're seeing a lot of these companies in this space to try to help patients, because it's really an unmet medical need, as I said.
Absolutely right. Actually, interestingly, you represent a great sample of the possible cooperation between, kind of public institution, industry, and innovators, entrepreneurs. So really exciting and a wonderful opportunity to build on this. Anyone wants to make a final statement as we're approaching the end of our panel? Opportunity to pitch for investors, talent.
Well, if there are any investors on board, then we're fundraising for our next big round of clinical trials and development. So feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. You can use my name. So thanks for that, Francois.
Then, Kim, if you never contact EIT Health before, you need to approach our Scandinavia team to know about opportunities to raise funding.
All right. Excellent.
Which are a lot.
That's the networking opportunity right there. Yeah, Ludovic, any thought?
Yeah, so we just closed a round. So we will, after the investment in Kim's company, in 6 months, let's say in 9 months, we will start the next round. So feel free to, we'll definitely reach out. So feel free to put us on your watch list. And of course, we're always looking for exceptional new team members. So there on the website, you will find everything. And I'm always open for anything.
Well, thank you all, 4 of you. Terrific discussion, and really, again, a lot of opportunity to improve patients' life in this field, break the barriers of innovation. So thank you very, very much to each of you, and back to you, Jessica.
Thank you very much, Francois. What a riveting conversation. Clearly, network was happening live during the panel, so that's exactly what we're looking for. And I'd like to thank all the people that participated in this panel. You each really gave us an understanding of what it means to be an entrepreneur and to get funds and get things moving. So thank you to all. So we're soon nearing the end of this event, but of course, there's going to be a moment where we're going to have to announce the winners. I just want to let you know that we have over 1,000 people participate following us live, and over 800 people voted. So clearly there's a huge interest, and I'm assuming it's also because the pitches were so good. So let's get going. I think it's the time we've all been waiting for, Timothy.
Yes, indeed.
I mean, we've had 9 pitches. We've had so much reaction. So I can just assume that the people that did pitch are really nervous, excited, and waiting for this moment. So I'm going to first ask Timothy to announce the winner of the public vote. Timothy?
Thank you, Jess. So the public award for the Brain Innovation Days Best Pitch is given to Icometrics. Well done, Annabelle.
Yeah, we're very excited. We're already so glad to be in the final 9. So it's really motivating to win the public prize. And we're looking forward to networking on the real event and talking to a lot of people. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Annabelle. Congratulations. Really, there was so much public interest and you were a clear winner. So I'm now going to hand over the floor to Mark Ferguson, who is president of the jury. Mark, I'm going to let you do the introduction and to announce the jury winner.
First of all, a big thank you to all of the pitchers. Your presentations were all good, gave us a hard time to make a decision, but we have made a decision, and I'm pleased to say that the jury winner is PIPRA. PIPRA has a broad range of applicability, obviously, in the post-surgical delirium phase, interesting business plan, and perhaps you may want to say a few words.
Wow. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Mark, everyone on this panel, Brain Innovation Days, this was really quite shocked. Such incredible competition, pitches. What we're addressing is a really huge unmet need in healthcare and a very important mission. And it's really great to be able to have opportunities like this to be able to push forward what we're doing. So thank you so much. On behalf of my team and myself, thank you.
Congratulations to John and the PIPRA team. Thank you very much, Mark, as well. I just want to say big thank you to all of you, even those the ones that may not have won. I mean, you've been given visibility, you did great work, and there's a whole community now that knows about you. And on that note, I'd like to welcome Fred again. Fred, it's come to the end of our second event. If you'd like to give us some concluding remarks before I say bye-bye to everyone online.
Yes, thank you, Jess. Well, actually, we've gone through a very exciting event today. I'd like to thank all the contributors. We had a high-level competition. We hope that you enjoyed it as much as we did here in the studio. And actually, we've heard a lot, and we've heard a lot about the challenges and the hurdles, but also about the hope that is lying ahead of us in terms of how to create innovation in the EU. So our next event is going to happen in April, and we'd like to build on the learnings of today and focus on policy development that impact this creation of innovation. But in the meantime, stay tuned, because we are going to release more information online to create more podcasts. And actually, we invite you to engage in the matchmaking that, as you said, Jess, was already happening during our panel sessions.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Fred. I'd like to definitely tell you the matchmaking continues until 5:30 today. So do not hesitate to get in there and work your skills and meet some potential investors. I'd like to thank everyone that got involved, the pitchers, the panelists, the moderator, Francois. Thank you very much. Obviously, the people at B-Lean and at EBC. Thank you, Fred. And also the technical team, because there's a whole team behind this day. We're in a studio, it takes a lot of time and effort, but we work as a team. I enjoyed myself. I hope I hosted it okay for you, and I hope you've had a great time with us. Thank you very much. Have an amazing afternoon and see you soon. Bye-bye from all of us.